Today I'm going to show you how to do some textured artwork. You will need some fix and grout or normal filler, or you can use silicone sealant, and it gives a good workable paintable textured surface. Right, you can use any tools, you don't need special tools. I'm going to use a spoon here to do the petals of a flower. So get a nice blob and then just scrape it up and it makes a petal. And keep doing that all the way around. A nice blob, push it up, again you'll have another petal. Always start from the outside of the flower because it's harder to work once you've done it on the inside, so start at the outside. Don't worry if it goes all over the place, you can scrape it around afterwards. It's looking very messy at the moment, but when it's finished you'll be surprised. And again, keep working the, oops, that one's gone over a bit. Keep working the blobs from the middle and scrape them out. Ideally you want them to look a bit of a scalloped edge at the top. The good thing with the grout and the space filler is it's sandable when you're finished, so if there's any bits you don't like you can take a little emery board and just sand them flat, and even reshape them with quite a sharp knife or again a small emery board. To get a better finish you can use a small icing tool or clay sculpting tool to define these scallops a bit better, to get these petals looking like petals. Now you see how nicely they're coming. These scallops a bit better to get these petals looking like petals. Now you see how nicely they're coming. It shows you why we don't need to worry when we're putting it on, that it's not going perfect, it can be moved. Whereas with paint, if you were doing this, you'd be moving the colours in amongst each other and losing your definitions. This is actually improving it. Got a few hard lumps in here from where it's set. That's not even a problem, that will go into the design as well. Yeah, the centre makes some little swirls and it'll make its own little petal effects. Quite an effective flower. We can tidy around the edges a little bit. And there we have it, our first flower. Now to do the stem, we can use a normal syringe. You can buy them in the chemist for kids' Calpol and things like that, and they're great tools for arts and crafts. You can use an icing syringe as well, but they're quite hard to clean and quite expensive if you have to end up throwing them away. So then we can just pipe on the stem. We can do the centre of a leaf. Now if we do it quite thick at the very end, Then we can again use another tool. You can use a sharp knife to do this as well rather than the proper tool, but whatever you've got at hand will do it. You can do it with your fingers if you really want to. Get a bit Van Gogh on it and get involved. There's no wrong way to do art, it's all expression. So just move it around until it looks and feels like a leaf. When you're happy with it, just step away. Most people make mistakes because they keep working it and working it and working it and trying to get it perfect, but in nature nothing is truly perfect. The flaws are what give it the beauty. So we can tidy up the edges again with a blade and a tissue. Right, now our grout is dried, we can now proceed to colour it and go to the fun bits. So I'm going to start by spraying it with an aerosol paint, which is just a normal car paint. I'm going to have a nice dramatic black. And spraying with an aerosol, you need to do a lot of different coats in different directions. Make sure you're in a well ventilated area because the paint really does smell badly. Don't worry too much about getting into the nooks and crannies of your flower because you're going to be colouring that. Well, if you like, you can colour it again after in a different colour. And you can see from that, even just putting a coat of paint totally changes the whole aspect of it. Right, now we'll wait for that to dry and then I'll show you the next step. Right, now the black paint is nicely dried, we can start adding our colours and accentuating our design. So I'm going to start with the flower because then I don't have to, if I start with the green I'm going to be working over it and I have a risk of contaminating that colour and smudging and making a mess basically. So always start with what's farthest away from you. So I'm going to do a nice block wash of a red, and this is really not carefully done because it just wants to fill all the gaps. You want a nice thin acrylic paint. Water it down nicely so it goes into all those gaps because you don't want to be able to see the black too much when you're finished. You want the flower to look almost embossed and raised on top of the black background. So I'm mixing 2 or 3 different reds here. They're all quite flat colours, they're not particularly striking. It's just to cover the black at the moment and get into all those little gaps. We don't have to put too much highlights and lowlights on it because the shape and the raised effect of this medium will actually give you your highlights and lowlights with the shadows. So you don't have to really be a brilliant artist to get a good effect on this. Just be careful with the edges not to make any blobs and splodges because you want quite a dramatic edge so it really stands out. Right, when it's all looking a bit soggy and covered, I'm going to cheat now and I'm going to use a hairdryer to dry this level just to make it a little bit quicker. This is because we want this nice flat colour in the grooves. naturally when all the grooves are full. This lovely limey green. Then I'm going to go across again to a metallic, but this time I'm going to mix it with a small amount of blue. When you mix blue with green, it darkens the green. It gives it a lovely depth. And then we go across the top again, not really bothering the lovely flat green inside the grooves, just across the top. A little bit of a plain metallic on the top where the sunlight would have hit it. You want to highlight it a bit because leaves are quite shiny, so you want to fill in just the parts that would have caught the sun. Right, now we go back to our stem. And stems, if you notice, are never completely green. They always have a tinge of brown to them, an old sort of colour, woody, lovely woody browns. So we need to put a little bit of that. Now when you're painting trees, stems, and woody things, you always start from the bottom where it grew, because you find your brush is wettest, so it will become thickest. So you start a little bit thicker, and as it tailors off, it becomes thin naturally. So start at the bottom and up to the top, just dragging your brush across, just to give it that woodiness that you would have in a stem.